back into joint, the weight of it. And that day, my husband had the car, and so I suffered. I couldn't get hold, but there was no cell phone, no nothing. And so I suffered until he came to pick me up, and my knee was humongous by the end of the day, and I don't think we had school the next day.
I don't think so.
Because I went to the doctor.
So if the teacher can't come, there's no school?
No school.
That's right. While I was teaching the first school, I had a appendicitis appendix operation, and so they didn't have school for a week.
Oh, just a week you had?
Yeah, and then you went back.
A week you had for your appendicitis, and then you were back.
And I had it done on a set, because I went to the doctor on a Friday night, and he put me right in the hospital, and they operated on Saturday morning. And okay, I said, I can't do this. I have a job. I have these little kids. But
who were your teachers besides Mrs. Craig? It was Mrs. Craig McCain.
Okay, oh gosh. There was, when I was going to school in Lincoln, it was Lenore Cummings. She was the teacher. But there was a gal, what was her name, that was quite skillful in art activities. She would come every once in a while, not all the time, not on a steady basis, but every once in a while we would go to her house and she would help us do like charcoal drawings and things like that. This was in Lincoln. Okay, then after that we moved down to the farm. Oh, there was Irene Platt.
really,
Yes, Platt, L-E-T-T. She's the one that had the pony. She rode the school.
She rode the pony to school?
Rode the pony to school. And sometimes she'd put it up on Dad's, up in, because we weren't, like I said, we were very far from the school. She'd put it up there, then she'd, in the barn. And there was a Mrs. Heiberger from Garwin. Oh, I did not like her.
Because?
Because she was very, 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 very strict. And we weren't really that used to that. You know, we weren't a naughty bunch of kids, but we weren't used to that bunch of strictness. Who else was there? Ooh, Bernice and Irene Platt and Dorothy Heiberger was her name. Those are the ones I remember. Oh, sure, there was somebody else, wasn't there? Didn't leave a very good impression, did they?
But you liked Mrs. Craig.
Yes, oh yes, and Irene Platt, she was there several years. So.
Yes.
Platt or Lett?
Platt, P-L-E-T-T.
Do you remember where these other teachers lived?
I'm not very sure where Irene lived. She must not live very far away if she rode that pony.
Oh, where did they live?
I don't know. And Dorothy Heiberger lived in Garwin.
How often did you see your students, your teachers, outside the school day?
Not very often.
And did you ever see your students?
Not very often. Although
At church or the store?
I was invited to I think I was in every one of their homes for a meal. You know, an evening meal. I had to go home with, I didn't go home with the kids. I wasn't going to be there that long. But I would go for a meal. I shouldn't tell her this if she's recording it, but this one, they were a hired man, and they had a boy and a girl in school. And he would take me back to town, to my home. And as we're riding, he puts his hand over on oh dear. And I'll never forget that. I was so mad, angry. I thought, you dirty old man. And he wasn't old, he was young. But still, that goes with teaching.
Yeah.
What role did the students have to keeping the room up?
Mine had to they cleaned the chalkboards.
Chalkboard, yeah, and the erasers.
Make sure Yes, and erasers, and make sure that there was no paper or anything around their desk, that their desks were cleared. That was basic.
But as far as janitorial stuff like sweeping the floor and stuff like that, I don't know, I'm assuming you did that, right?
Yes, yes. So you didn't leave right after school, you swept and dusted, if you dusted.
Yeah.
Did anybody help you take care of the schoolhouse? You mentioned Irvin would help stoke the
That was about
furnace.
it. That was about it. Irvin would start the fire, but the rest of it was up
The
to,
mowing.
well, somebody did.
Somebody did the mowing.
Somebody
I
did the
suppose.
mowing. I'm not so sure there was the grass like today. I think there was a lot of bare ground.
Yeah.
Now, how long were you both in the same school?
Well, I thought Bernice was there longer than she says she is. She
I
said
thought-
she's only there 6 months or so.
Yeah.
But I just don't remember her that short a period of time. But I wonder who left so that you came. You know?
Well, the teacher was they were going to start farming someplace away, and so you were without a teacher. And of
I
course,
wonder who that was.
and I had substituted, there was a country school, we were living on the hill, working for Toby Larson.
Okay.
And there was a country school there, and the teacher, if she was sick, then I substituted in
Oh,
that
so
one.
you did.
So I did a
have
little. Yeah.
Did your school have a library?
You know, I pondered over that question a lot because I cannot recall that there was
I don't
a lot of books there, other than what the kids used. Which I think today I'm like Annette, I'm a reader, and I think, oh my.
Oh, yeah.
You don't remember if you would have gone into the county superintendent and gotten some books from him regularly?
Well, I don't know that I did.
I remember reading when I was the Bobbsey twins. And where did I ever get the first book? Did somebody give it to me? Did I don't
The
know.
Bobbsey twins.
Yes.
Well, yeah, now, you know, that kind of comes
Yeah.
to me that we had that in
Yeah.
our school. Now,
Yeah.
where they came from,
Where they
whether they
came
were
from,
there
I
when
don't
I
know.
started, you know,
But I think I read every one that they had. But
Did you have to take any standardized tests, such as 8th grade exams?
yes.
And how did you prepare for those?
I don't remember ever trying to prepare for it. The teacher surely would have. But I know I had to go down to Toledo to do it. That's right. I had to take them, go down there.
Do you remember anything about helping them prepare for this
I didn't
exam?
have, I never had an 8th grade student,
Never had an
Oh.
8th grader.
other
Okay.
than when I got down in her
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
And, you know, I can't remember specifically teaching. I think we probably had some literature, or some
Yeah,
material that helped us to, so that,
yeah.
because we didn't want them to fail.
I remember also listening to the Laura Ingalls Wilder's books, the Little House on the Prairie books.
And how would you listen to them?
No, the teacher read them to us.
Oh, the teacher read.
Yep. And I know, I just remember coming in from noon, our noon recess, she would always read to us, and she would read those books, and we were ready to listen, because, everybody seemed to like them. But I think she read the whole series to us.
Do you remember an 8th grade graduation ceremony?
Oh, yes.
What do you remember about that?
Oh, that was down in Toledo also, and we sat on the stage, we were all dressed in our finest, and somewhere along the line there's a picture, and there were quite a few of us, really.
Well, probably, there were a lot of
Because-
country schools
yeah,
at that time.
Yeah, and we sat there prim and proper, and somebody gave a speech, And then we got to walk across the stage and pick up our little diploma that said we graduated from 8th grade and you're on your own.
They still do that in
yeah.
Hartford.
Do they? So, and on to the next step.
Do you remember what you wore?
Yes, it was, I had white shoes and a blue dress. And I remember I had a cold. And I was, I remembered a bad cold. And my nose kept running and I kept sniffing, you know. And my mom and dad thought I was crying. Oh, I do remember that, yes.
How were the parents and the community members involved with the school?
They were very interactive. We tried to do a few evening things, like, of course, the Halloween thing and
Oh, tell me about the Halloween thing.
well, we would have a Halloween party and the kids would dress up and of course there was no place to go, but the parents would come and we also did a Thanksgiving night with pumpkin pie.
No, I don't remember doing that.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah. We always did a Christmas program where we acted out a play or two.
Oh, definitely. And you hung
You hung that big
wire across
with the sheet on it or whatever. Yes. And everybody had a little piece to say, a little recitation thing to say, and they had a play.
Right.
At least one or two. They got the religious aspect of it though too. I mean, we had baby Jesus, and yeah. Then of course everybody came to that.
Oh, yeah.
All the parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles.
How did you get them all into the school?
Well, the desks were pushed off to the side.
So what? That's not where they sat in the
No,
desk
they
then?
had chairs.
Chairs.
They sat in chairs.
Yeah, you did, but we didn't have them in our school.
Okay.
You had them there, yes.
Okay, yes.
You were a much
Yeah.
more modern
So
school.
so your parents had to sit in the desk?
Yes.
Lot of
And we did
standing.
have one Christmas program with Bernice Todden was teaching 2 miles south of my school. And she and I graduated together, both of us with normal training. And my school was better than hers because I had a furnace and she didn't. So we did a joint Christmas program because both of us had few students. And it worked really well because we could do a production. I'll never forget the little boy starting out. This is, I can't forget, this is Christmas Eve or something. Some little ditty comes through my head once in a while.
You said her name was Bernice?
Todd,
T-H-A.
T-H-A-D-E-N.
I think so, yeah.
2 D's?
No, 1 D.
Just one D.
She and I both graduated with this normal training certificate out of Rhinebeck School.
We always had to, at the end of the school year, we always had a picnic or potluck
Oh, yes.
or whatever.
Yes.
You know, yeah, picnic and sometimes we played by softball or ball was always the
Yes,
thing.
it was a
That was a big thing. And the dads would come and play with us, you know, the mothers would sit around talk and, yeah.
Now, we've already talked a little about your pay. You said $60, and that was a lot of money. And then you said $90.
$90 in her
because you had a
school.
year of college, and you're experienced. And so, for $90, what did you think about that?
Well, it was a lot at that time. You know, I can remember hired men getting $30
Yeah.
a month and a house to live in, of course. And maybe milk and eggs.
Yeah, yeah, some of the farm produce,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And you've talked about your training, but you had normal training in high school,
Yes.
and then you had a year at ISTC.
Yes.
What did you do once you left school at the end of the day?
We went home and we had, usually, that was in high school. I had changed clothes, but that was in high school. I don't think we did when we were in the country school. But we had our chores to do. We had to bring in the coal, we had to bring in the you know, in the wintertime, and the cobs for the furnace, we had to gather the eggs. Sometimes we had to feed the pigs. Depending on what Dad was doing. Yeah, we had our chores to do.
What might be a typical night's homework?
I just do not remember having homework. So I can't say, you know, I don't think we had homework.
I don't think they did either. I don't think my kids did either.
What was your favorite part of the day?
I think I liked mornings. I liked seeing those kids come to school. I did. I loved kids. And, you know, just to see them come and they're nice and clean and fresh and they have a smile on their face because I think they got to where they liked me, respected me after that bad year before me.
Took you a year to turn them around.
Right. When I taught in Morrison, that was a whole different class of people. There were some very poor, I mean, I was raised poor, but this was an exceedingly poor. There were some families where the husbands had gotten killed in a train accident, or they got hit going to work or coming home. And so they lived basically, one family just basically lived in a shack. And I almost used to say, oh, and their noses were always running, and I would think, oh, I hope they get sick and stay home today. And do you think those kids ever got sick?
Yeah,
they had such an immune system. That was when tennis shoes were just coming out, and there would be holes in the toes, and they never had overshoes, and I would think, now they have to have a strong immune system. They told how when there was a snowstorm, there was snow on the cook stove in the morning, had blown in. You know, it was a sad, and there were like 7 or 8 kids, and I had 3 or 4 of them. And today I look at some of that family, and they're very precious people. You know, they grew up, they made their way in this world, but it was a whole different area.
And I don't think in our school that we had any so-called poor
No,
families.
that's a different era.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it wasn't that
yeah.
way when I was in the other school, but
Yeah, I know.
Morrison had a lot of that, and
I mean, they were all farmers, and
Yeah.
the kids were clean and respectful, and
I can't say these kids were so really dirty, but, you know, I would look at those little tennis shoes and I just wanted to go buy them all a pair of shoes. But of course you can't do that.
What was your favorite part of the day?
I'm gonna say like a typical second grader would here, like recess, because we just went out and we always had fun outside. I mean, that was our time to play, and you know, and like I said, softball or baseball, whatever you want to call it, was a big thing there.
It was even in my first school. Now in Morrison, I can't, of course, there was 2 teachers and we took turns supervising outside because there were a lot more kids there.
And our baseball was always workup,
Oh, yes.
you know, so everybody had a chance to be the pitcher or the catcher or the.
You didn't choose sides.
No, you didn't choose sides. And you always remembered where you were when the bell rang. You remembered where you were so that you got that place back the next time. Yes.
What was your worst memory?
My worst memory. This was with one of the teachers. My brother and I, my dad had some land down the road, and he had some hogs out there, and we had decided after school, you know, unbeknownst to Mom and Dad, but we went down there and we're down there cutting down thistles in the yard where the pigs were. Anyway, this teacher, we were walking home at the time the teacher was, and she just royally, because you know we hadn't gone directly home to school. And I think that may have been one of my worst experiences, because I felt about this high after she got through reaming us out, and it was nothing, you know, it was no biggie.
You were chopping thistles, you were being helpful, were you not?
Yeah, we were, and I'm sure, because we talked about doing that, and I mean, my brother and I talked about doing that, and Dad, I'm sure, heard us, and I'm sure he knew what we were, so.
I think my worst was when a snowstorm came fast, and there was no cell phone, and the parents finally came, and I have a car there at that time, and I've got to get out of there, and I think that was a big fear for me. I mean, here I am out there in that country. Not that I was raised on a farm, so that wasn't, but, you know, the weather thing. I mean, the storm come, you know, just like, okay, now the weather radio comes on, okay, we had none of that. There was no way of contacting anybody.
Even when a child was sick or something.
That's
There was
right.
no way of
No,
communicating.
that's right.
What was the hardest situation you faced as a classroom teacher?
Well, it was probably discipline to start with because of the previous teacher.
Why did you choose to teach?
It was the thing to do at that time.
Yeah, it was.
It was. What else was I going to do? That's why I took a normal training certificate or education, so that, because there was, I mean, we're talking some tough years when they raised that big family.
It sounds like you had such a good opportunity to get into it. in the first
Yes,
place, too,
yes.
you know.
And my mother was a rheumatoid arthritic victim. And so when I went home, when I was still living at home, there was some things to do in the house because she couldn't do everything, you know.
Is that why you chose to teach a one-room school? Was because so you could help with your mother? To
Well,
be at home?
probably that, and what else was I going to do? I don't want to be housekeeper, somebody else's housekeeper. I don't want to be a hired girl.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I did not want to be a hired girl. And of course we had teachers in my family. I mean, like Cousin Irma, another cousin. This was kind of an established thing in the Plain. All the uncles and aunts, their kids became teachers. And it was the time, wasn't it? Even for you. And many times I regretted not going back and doing that second year so I could have gone into a public school. But you know, you kind of fall into a rut. Got married and had kids and started farming and did the whole thing.
How did the country school day end?
You mean, it
We've
was,
got the room all cleaned up.
Yes. Okay,
And then?
okay, pick up those papers, clear off your desk. Don't just stuff the papers in the
Yeah.
desk.
yeah.
And, yeah, and
Make
then,
sure your assignments are all up here on my desk. I
Right,
remember teacher
yes,
saying
your-
that. Your assignments are in,
yes.
and
Then what did you have to do before you could leave the building?
Make sure the furnace was, in the winter you stoked it.
you stoke the
You
furnace.
stoked the
yes.
furnace so there wasn't,
Yeah.
emptied the water thing so it didn't freeze. And just general, and
Yeah.
I always tried to go over the lessons for the next day, to be prepared. I'm kind of one of these nuts that have to know
What I'm doing.
what I'm doing.
Did you take a lot home with you to work on at
I
night?
can't say that I did. I probably did, but I don't remember.
I can remember, like checking, like this was when I was over, like in 5th, 6th grade or whatever, checking first graders' math paper or whatever. I remember doing that.
Yes,
Mhm.
and sometimes a kid would like to stay in at recess time and help do
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
What major local, national, and world events happened while you were teaching?
Mine was World War II.
Yeah. I remember coming home from school, and my mom was standing by she was ironing, and we walked in, and she said, "The war is over." I mean, you know.
You remember that?
I remember that. And I can remember my dad, he would sit there, he would have a map. He'd sit in his chair and he'd have a map of France and so forth. And he'd listen to the radio and he'd look on that map and see where the Battle of the Bulge, for instance, you know, where this was all taking place. Because, you know, that was the only means of, the radio was the only way of, you know, following along and stuff.
See, and we did a lot of that in school. We had a big globe, and we would follow, okay, where is Hawaii, you know, the kids, of course, that's kind of, as I said, that's my thing. But it was interesting for kids because maybe they didn't get any of that at home. Where is Germany? Where's Russia? And how are they involved?
Well, you were talking about some of your poor families. They probably didn't even have a radio.
Oh, no,
you know?
no, well, no,
Yeah.
they didn't.
Was the school building used any other way as church services or for polling, for voting, or community center?
I think maybe in Morrison, I think that was used for voting.
I'm wondering if we, I don't think so, because the cemetery was right there. I think they used that maintenance shed or whatever. Didn't they use that for the polling, for voting? I think so.
That could be.
So the cemetery had a building.
Yeah, they had where they kept their equipment. I think that was used, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I
I don't know.
I don't remember them voting there.
What lessons could we learn from country schoolhouses today?
I think probably like, you know, you learned to respect everybody. I don't think we had well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to say it. We definitely did not have the discipline problems that they have now.
I didn't either after that, and also the atrocious language that kids use today was not, and you know, we didn't hear that. We didn't have this, all this swear words.
Yeah.
Okay. I never ever heard an F word.
No, no.
You didn't?
I don't recall it.
I mean, I don't know whether there were some advantages of country school.
What are the advantages?
Well,
What we just said.
just what we
Okay,
just said.
all right.
Yeah, but I think a disadvantage is you only knew the people, the kids you went to school with.
Right,
You never, you know, mom and dad never went to town.
right.
And so when I graduated from 8th grade into town school, I was like a little lost chicken.
This was very typical,
yes.
very typical of
Right.
kids coming in. Of course, I always attended public school. I graduated my whole life through the Rhinebeck School. And you could definitely pick those kids out that came in as freshmen, that they were like, what are we doing in this
Yes.
big wide world? Because they had lived in this little cluster. And I think a disadvantage is, of course, I'm kind of into the fine arts thing with Jean as a teacher. I mean, sure, we learned to sing Jimmy Crackcorn
Yeah.
and all these things with a Victrola, but I wasn't teaching them any of the music. I mean, not just the singing part. What is music all about? Where they get all of this, especially when you get to the junior high, upper elementary level.
I didn't know what a clef was, you know, until I got to high school.
Yeah,
I didn't
see?
know a whole note from a half
No,
note.
no.
I mean, I didn't know any of that. We sang songs, but
Yeah,
we
we
didn't
sang
learn
songs.
the
With the-
dynamic or the whatever of music. you know.
Right, yeah.
None of that.
And And even, okay, I had one class of art at ISTC,
Yeah.
so that helped me a lot. And, oh, I did, because I had to take a music class, and that was
yeah,
in my
we had
freshman
to,
year. So,
What was that, the ukulele, no, what was that little thing we had to play and test out of in music?
yes,
When I was there too.
yeah.
But,
So I
Yeah.
had a little bit of basics for some of
A
this.
recorder?
no, it wasn't a recorder.
No.
What was it?
It was,
You strummed it.
Oh,
A what?
I just said, oh.
I don't know what that was. I didn't remember having
Yeah,
that
I had to do that. You had to test out on that.
a long time ago, 42.
Could country schoolhouses be successful today?
No,
No. I would say no.
say no.
Because
Because we're too versatile. I mean, look at the electronics and stuff that they have now. I mean, where would they all come from?
It just, I just couldn't even visualize kids in a country school today. They're not going to,
No.
I mean,
We had the basics.
that's
And we
right.
didn't have any luxuries. That's not the word I want
Right,
to use. But
exactly.
we didn't have any extras.
Any extras, it
Yeah.
was basically reading, writing, arithmetic, and
Yeah.
what geography, what
Yeah.
history we could
Yeah,
teach, and
yeah.
this type of thing,
But
but,
the teacher could throw in. Yes.
yeah. But we didn't have the science that we have today.
We didn't do any. I don't remember doing an experiment.
No.
Or dissecting something.
No.
Or
No,
that
I
kind
don't
of
think
stuff.
We didn't take a pig's eye apart.
No.
anything else you'd like to share about rural schools?
I'm not sorry I went to a country school. I think I got a good background to go to high school, but high school was a traumatic experience that first
Right.
week or so. I mean, I didn't know where to go. I basically didn't know very
That's
many
right.
people. And I wanted to play in the band, and here I was a freshman, and all the other kids had already
Had lessons.
had lessons, they probably started when they were in sixth grade or whatever. And there I was starting from scratch, and
See,
I
to me,
really-
that's
I
a big
really worked.
disadvantage.
yeah. I really worked to learn how to play that little old trombone. But
But I'm glad that I had the experience of country school.
Yeah.
Because I look back and think, those were some special years in my life.
same here.
They really
I
were.
agree with you, Bernice.
I mean, having attended a public school the whole 12 years, and then to go out and teach in this little country school with 8 kids to start with, and it was true. I mean, I would not trade it for anything, that experience, really.
And I'm like almost the opposite of Bernice. I went to country school and then to high school, And so where she started in a town school and I went to a country school. But no, I'm with you, Bernice. I would not have traded those years for anything.
No, I wouldn't either. Even at $60 a month,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have traded that for anything.
I look back at my own children and some of the things that they had to put up, not put up with, that's not the word I want to use, but some of the, like in junior high, some of the stresses they had,
Right.
that you did not have.
You didn't have, kids did not have the stress that is put
Yeah.
on them today. The not only achieving, but you gotta win, you gotta be first, and I see this so much with the great grandkids. You gotta be on the first team. Jean just said Sawyer was disappointed they had a final ball game last night. He only got to play 2 innings. And this is so drilled into these kids, we gotta win, win, win. And I guess that's why
Yeah.
Jean ended up with this great big chorus, because her theory, teaching music in the school, was if you wanna sing, regardless whether you're a top-notch singer, you can be in chorus. Because it can be fun, and if you even if you're not a really good singer, you can be in chorus.
I think
And there's
the pressure.
105 kids signed up for high school chorus next year.
I think there's so much pressure put on kids nowadays that we did not have. And that we didn't have, like I said, I don't remember homework, you know, we talked
No.
about that. I don't
And
remember
they
that.
did not get the work ethics
Yeah,
that,
yes.
the country school kids were farm kids, so they learned to do chores.
Oh, yeah, we
Today, kids have to play because there are no chores. There's an automatic washer dryer that, you know, not too tough, where maybe they came home and had to empty the ash pan from under the cook stove. Of course, I'm going back to when I grew up, that's what happened. But, you know, these kind of things, there were still, maybe some of them did not see. I don't know whether REA, Rural Electric, was through yet in that area. I don't think so. So there was still kerosene lamps. And so kids do not today have the work ethics.
Did you have kerosene lamps in your
Yes.
school?
Yes.
I don't remember what we had.
No,
Must
you
have
had
been
electricity, I think, down
Yeah,
there.
I was thinking, yeah.
Okay, ladies, the UNI Museum thanks you, and I heartily thank you. This has been delightful.
Wasn't this interesting, Annette?
It was fun,
It
wasn't
was fun.
Oh, yes.
It's great. Oh, it was.
Yeah,
You know, those are the years.
those were.
And whenever I would see one of the kids
Still working. I'll stop it.
succeed that I had in